Hi, Brett. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Daniel.
Oh, you're really welcome. Now, I'm sure everyone that is listening knows about your successes in the swimming world, but just to recap, to make sure everyone's on the same page, dual Olympian, Olympic gold medal, winning coach, NCAA winning coach, founder and host of Inside with Brett Hawke Swimming podcast. All these accolades. Why are you getting back in the water to be a master swimmer now?
Good question. Well, listen, I've had people kind of pestering me for a while, along the same lines of why did I start a podcast? People are pestering me for that, and I haven't had an urge or an itch necessarily until up till about a couple of years ago. Like I've been coaching. When you're on the pool deck, the last thing you want to do is get back into a pool. And when I retired at 31, I was pretty set with my career. I felt like, I squeezed everything I needed to squeeze out. I'd lost that urge to want to be the best in the world. And so I shifted, right? And it wasn't until till I turned about 45 where you start to think to yourself, like, I'm not looking that good for my age. I'm not feeling that good. What am I good at? And you feel comfortable in the water. And so I guess, and then I had people all around me saying, you should do masters. And just, I kept putting it off and putting it off. But, when it's constantly in your head, eventually it kind of sits there for a while and you start to think about it. So ultimately, I think it was just the right timing for it. A couple of things happened in my life where I was like, you know what? I want to get back to just feeling good about myself. I want to get back to health and fitness and spending time on me a little bit rather than spending time on everybody else's health and fitness. And so I think just the timing's right for it.
Yeah. And I noticed the other day you said that you were going to be aiming for the world champs in Doha. So that's 8 months out now. What's your training regime going to look like in the water and on dry land heading into that?
Good question. Yeah. So I'm still living in Boston. I just finished up a job here working for a tech company. And I'm going to be moving back to California. So I'm going to be moving out to Irvine, which is basically Dave Saylor's backyard. He's got a beautiful facility there, beautiful pool. The place I'm moving into has an outdoor 25-yard pool right outside my apartment room. So it's like there's no excuse. The sun's out all the time in California. So it's just the right timing. So it'll be about 3 weeks from now that I'll be heading out there. So I kind of wanted to make this declaration to myself and then to everybody else of like, I'm going to do this, now's the time to do it. So I've started to prep for the next 3 weeks. And so what will it look like is a good question. I think ultimately, when I first start off, I haven't been training now for, we're talking 15 years in the pool, so it's a lifetime out of the pool.
Yeah.
But so I think I'll ease back in to maybe like anyone would, like I'd recommend for anybody, when you're first getting into something is ease into it. So probably start with 3 workouts a week for a month, and then I'll build into 4, and then I'll build into 5, and then I'll see if I need any more than that. I feel pretty comfortable that I can get enough done in 5 workouts. My workout structure is obviously going to be sprint focused, and I feel really good about the plan I can put together for that. I'm a big believer in if you want to race fast, you've got to train fast. That's my philosophy for everybody I coached. So it'll be technique based, slow technique swimming, working on skills and drills, and then it'll be fast swimming. And so I'm only going to need 30 minutes in the pool to get that done. I can do some land work, like you said, some dry land work to kind of some pre-work before I get into the pool. Then I'll get in the pool, I'll do a short warm-up, I'll get into my speed. I'll obviously work on some technique work as well during that time. And 30 minutes is all I need. So I'm looking at about 5 workouts a week, 30 minutes in the pool. And then I love cross training. So, I think strength training is important for fast swimming for sure. But I'm at the stage in my life where I don't want it to just be a grind. I want to have fun with it. So I'll probably do some classes, some like I guess some CrossFit classes, or classes where there's people around you. I mean, I think that's going to be important for me starting off, and then as I progress and as I start to get a little bit more detailed, then I might move into what do I need specifically for the events that I'm going to train for over the next 6 months type thing. So but initially it'll just be having fun with it.
Yeah, well, that's what Masters is all about, having fun and sort of connecting with maybe people that you knew when you were swimming, but a whole group of people that are passionate about swimming.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Dave Cielo. Are you going to swim with his Masters team there? Is it the Nova Masters?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to go on this journey with a group of people around the world. I'm going to start this journey, and I'm going to open it up to anyone who wants to join me. So I'm going to be doing it with people. I'm going to say, here's my workouts. You can join me, and we can do it together. Initially when I launch my website in about a week from now, on bretthawke.com, I'm going to have different levels for different people, right? There's going to be 4 different levels, basically a beginner level, kind of intermediate, an advanced, and an elite. And I'll be working in the elite level. That's just where I am. I've always considered myself an elite athlete, so I'll definitely be straight into that. But I want to open it up to everybody and say, come and join this journey with me, and we can compare notes. I'm going to be in just as much pain as everybody else is going to be in for a while. So it's like I want to open it up to people who want to join me, and my girlfriend, Carrie Hain, is also going to join me in this as well. And she is an former athlete who swam for the US at the World Championships. She's 42 years old, so she's kind of in that age bracket where she wants to be healthy and happy as well. So we're gonna do this together, and I want it to be a community type thing, and anyone who wants to join in can join us with this.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You had a personal best time in your 50 free of 22:07. Do you reckon you can get back to that or surpass it?
I don't know. That's an interesting question because technology has changed, right? The blocks are different these days. The swimsuits are certainly different. The type of training, the specificity that we do now is different. So a lot has changed. The recovery is massively different, right? The different modalities that we have in recovery these days. So much has changed since I was swimming at my best. So, I mean, the reality is probably not, right? That's what you would say to yourself. But, once I get going and this thing starts moving, then maybe I'm gonna leave myself the possibility is going to be open to maybe get back to my best based on all those different variables.
Yeah, I reckon you're a good chance. Have you checked out the world record in the 45 to 49 years?
Yeah, it's 23.5. I think I got that. I don't think I have to worry about being able to go that fast. I know for sure I can do that. The 22:07 is a different kettle of fish. That's at the elite level where a lot of the world's best swimmers are at. And I don't know if as a 48-year-old man I'm at that level anymore. So I think that might be a stretch. But like I said, so much has changed, and I'm willing to kind of give it a crack and see where we end up. But I know that I can get under that world record for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you done a bit of a time trial to see where you're at now?
No, I've done nothing. I've jumped in the water and had a splash around, and I feel good. If anybody follows me on Instagram, you see that I'm in good shape now. Like I've taken care of myself outside of the pool in the last couple of years, especially. Before that, I was a complete mess. I was so out of shape, and but I think one thing that has always been good for me is I've had good genetics. I've got to thank my mum and dad for that aspect of my athleticism. I've always been athletic. I've always had good genes. Even when I was out of shape, I was you wouldn't consider I wouldn't look at myself and think to myself, oh my God, what a mess, but I'm like, but I wasn't what I was. And I certainly wasn't what I am right now. I'm in much better shape. So at 48, I'd probably compare myself to being in the type of shape that I was, towards the end of my career at 31. So I feel really good about that. I don't think it's going to be difficult to get back into some racing shape.
Yep. Will you just focus on the 50s, or are you going to push it out to the hundreds?
I've always just focused on the 50s. I've never been a 100 guy. Now, short course yards in America, maybe I'll have a dig at a couple of those. But no, I've never really been interested in the hundreds themselves. I've always loved the flat out speed events. So I'll stick to probably 50 fly, 50 free primarily to begin with, and that's where I'll aim, I imagine.
Yep. And is this World Champs going to be a one-off for you, or is this a sort of a long-term journey that you're about to embark on?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I think for me, again, I'm looking at some holistic lifestyle changes in terms of really embracing swimming into my life again. So I'm not chasing a record, even though I just said that I could definitely get under the world record in my mind. I'm not chasing that. That's not what I'm doing this for. I'm doing this because I want to go on a journey with people in terms of physical, mental health, and just getting back, like taking control of your life again as an middle-aged man now, and saying to myself, like, look, we don't need to be out of shape. We don't need to be unhealthy physically or mentally. Like, we can be in really good shape. We can feel really good about ourselves, even under conditions of people that are flat out with work, right? Like, I just think that we should be putting ourselves again at the top of the list of priorities. And that's what I want to do for myself, and that's what I want to show other people, that they can do that too. So the records themselves, they may interest other people, and I'm sure that they'll be talked about. But I'm really more interested in the journey for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And coming into Masters, you'll have to record some times in competition. Have you got your eye on anything coming up where you can sort of put some qualifying times in?
No, some people have reached out to me already. I did join US Masters just last week, so I signed up for a team, and like I said, I'm about 3 weeks away from getting back into the initial stages of training again. So I'm going to start that. I'm going to look at about a month worth of work and say, okay, after a month, I feel pretty good that I can start to consider competitions again. I think before then, it's just me getting back in the pool and getting back into, some racing shape. So that'll take about a month. But beyond that, so yeah, I'd probably say that I'm going to be looking at events somewhere, probably October, November, December, around there. So I'll jump into the calendar and see what is available within the US for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever been to a Masters swim meet before?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been to a couple. I've actually coached some Masters athletes, and just on the side, just as an interest of mine, and I didn't publicize it. It was just very private between a couple of people, and we had a lot of success with it, and it was a lot of fun to watch them in their journey, and just get them to understand what swimming fast is. I think this is, look, it's not something that is just a Masters swimming issue. I think that in swimming in general, we tend to just do what everybody's always done, and there's laziness in coaching, right? It doesn't matter if it's at the elite level or the Masters level or the club level or the age group level. There's laziness, and I'm not calling anyone out in particular. I'm just saying that we can do better as coaches. And when I see a lot of Masters programs, to me, it's just, they're very generic, and it's just kind of like they're just going through the motions. But that's the same with high school programs or club programs or even elite sprint programs. I'm like, there are people that are really open to how do I get faster? How do we swim faster? And then there are people who are just like, here's what we do, shut up and do it. Don't ask any questions. And I've never been that type of coach. So when I'm looking at masters swimmers, and myself in particular as well, as now as a master swimmer, I want to say, well, how can I get faster? I don't want to just swim up and down a pool for the sake of swimming up and down a pool. Like I love the competition too, and I love the competition within myself to say, well, how can I get myself faster? And I know that every masters athlete that does this seriously enough ask those questions too. Like they don't want to stay at that level. Everyone's always trying to get better and always trying to get faster. And so that's the approach I'll be taking.
Yeah, and I know you said that you're going to spend about 30 minutes in the water swimming fast. What exactly are you going to do? Like, give us an example.
I've always enjoyed mixing up equipment. So, the way that I've always coached my athletes and the way that I would coach myself, and that's actually one of those things that I've often looked back on and thought to myself, wow, I wish I was writing workouts for myself back when I was an athlete. I would have been so much better. And so now I actually get that chance to do that. So I've always had the philosophy that I want my athletes to walk off the deck feeling successful. I want them to finish the whatever they're doing towards the end of their practices. I want that to be the best stuff they've done all practice. So I tend to build my practices. I don't go in and try and kill my athletes up front, within the first 10, 15 minutes. I want them to get faster and faster and faster. Now, when you are training speed, you do break down fairly quickly because you're at that highest intensity that you could possibly be at. So this is where I start to bring in equipment throughout the workout. So if I was to coach myself, let's say in a simple set of 25s, right? I would maybe start them descend 1 to 4. Let's say I'm going 40 25s really fast, right? The first set of 12, I might just say descend 1 to 4, descend 1 to 4, descend 1 to 4, that type of thing. So you're kind of just building up. The next set of 12, I might say, well, I want them to be all fast with no equipment, and then the next set of 12, I might say, well, I want them to be all fast, and we'll put paddles on this time, and we'll swim with some paddles. And then, maybe the last round would be like fins and paddles. So you're just getting faster with adding some equipment as well. So that could be one way that you would work a speed set. Another thing that I love doing is resistance work. I love the challenge of resistance. And again, I think that you want to get faster and faster as you go on resistance as well. So maybe I might do a set of parachutes where, we have different varieties of parachute these days. You have bigger ones and then you have smaller ones. So I might say, well, we'll start with a bigger parachute. We'll pull some parachutes. And then as we go down, still swimming fast, we might reduce the size of the parachute. And then again, we might add equipment to that. So you're swimming with resistance, but you're also adding equipment to that as well. So I like to just mix it up. I like to challenge with different equipment. But like I said, I'm always looking at getting faster and always looking at walking off the pool deck, feeling successful, and walking off with a smile. If you walk off with a smile, you tend to walk back on with a smile. If you walk off feeling useless and unsuccessful, the last thing you want to do is rush back to the pool again, so that's always been my philosophy is make them feel good, make them feel successful, and they'll want to come back again.
Yeah. And I know you were a coach or a head coach eventually at Auburn University, and you've just mentioned that 40 25s, which is sort of a bit of the Auburn Sprint Set that sort of floats around. A lot of master swimmers do that set. I don't think they do it just like you've described it then. But was that something that you came up with?
I actually came up with 125. So that's a very famous set that I came up with. I was actually coaching at Auburn University my first year, and David Marsh was the head coach. And during Thanksgiving, we actually get the athletes and we can coach them as much as we want. And so what we usually do before we send them home for Thanksgiving is we work them really, really hard. And I remember one particular day, David came up to me and basically said, all right, Brett, I want you to write a workout that's memorable. I want them to leave here for Thanksgiving and think to themselves, that's the toughest thing I've ever done. I want them to feel like they've just been hit by a truck, but in a good way, like, wow, what the hell was that kind of thing? And so I really sat there and thought to myself, like, well, like all the tough sets had already been done before. And when I talk about tough sets, you talk about, long, arduous type workouts where you're just getting pounded and pounded. And I thought to myself, well, I like the concept of that, but I want to do it fast. Like I want them to feel fast. I don't want them to feel like they're just getting beat up just for the sake of beat up. So I'm not going to give them 12 200s butterfly, that type of thing. And then that was always the mentality in swimming. And so I thought, well, yeah, I like the idea of working really hard for an extended period of time, but I want to go fast doing it. So I started to write out these 25s. And as I went down, I just kept going. And I thought to myself, I wonder how many we could do swimming at 100 pace. So if you're at the pace you want to be, I wonder how much we could do. And I ended up writing 10 sets of 10. And the interval actually started off with a very loose interval. So you basically started the first 10 on a minute. And then the way I wrote it out was you would drop 5 seconds on the interval each 10. So it was 55, 50, 45, 40. So it got faster and faster and harder and harder and harder. And I looked at it and I was like, I wonder if we can actually do this. This is crazy. 125s at 100 pace, on a descending interval. And I brought it to the athletes and they were like, that sounds really difficult, but let's give it a go. And I tell you what, it was just the best set I've ever experienced. That day was just magic, and they all bought into it and they all ate it up, but they were all completely wiped out by the end of it. And they were just said that's the hardest thing they've ever done. It was just, again, it's a set of 25s. They walked away from that. And I think the workout ended up taking us about 2.5 hours, because we had cool down in between each set of 10. And so I wanted them to be ready to go. I wanted them to give 100% each of the 10 25s that they did. And so they had to do 10 rounds of that. So that's kind of where it started. And I think there's just been variations of that over time,
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a legendary set that you came up with.
Yeah.
Because I know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. My Masters squad pull that out all the time when we're doing sprinting, but we don't do it quite like that. Maybe a little bit more rest, maybe.
Yeah. Look, the rest is important for sure. I think when you're trying to hurt somebody, you can manipulate the rest so they don't get much of it. But then the quality comes down. So you've always got this balance between, well, how do I want it to look? How good do I want it? How much rest should I give? And so certainly as the rest comes down, it becomes more difficult to keep the quality and the standard. But then also that the mental side of it. We often talk, how do you train your brain in the pool? How do you train for mental toughness? Well, mental toughness is about consistency over time. And so when you're swimming fast for a period of 2.5 hours, you've got to be mentally switched on and you've got to be ready to go every repeat. I don't want them to take a repeat off. It's like you take a repeat off and we'll do it again, so it's like, give me everything you've got every repeat. So just focus on the one that you're giving me. Don't focus on the 87 that are still left to come. I want you to focus on this one and then switch off, and then the next one and switch off. And so when they do it that way, that's mental toughness,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, because a lot of people sort of save up for that last 10 and they know that's coming. But if you can get your mind around working on the one you're at, it's obviously beneficial long term.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, look, like I said to you at the beginning of this, swimming fast is the goal, right? Like everybody wants to race fast, but you can't race fast unless you train fast. That's always been my philosophy. And I've had tremendous amount of success with it as a sprint coach. when I was an athlete, as I aged up and I started to take more control of my training as an older athlete, I started to realize, like, I'm only good when I'm training fast. That's when I'm really good, and there was a lot of threshold work. There was a lot of, just swimming up and down the pool for the sake of it to fill in time. I was like, this is silly. Like, I want to swim with a purpose. I want to train the way I want to race. I want to race really fast, so I've got to train that way. So when I started doing that with my athletes, I started having a tremendous amount of success. And look, you see a lot of programs all around the world now. They're very skill orientated. They're very detail oriented. They're very race pace oriented. Like, race pace wasn't a thing that we did 20 years ago very often. You might do race pace once a week. Now people are putting in race pace every practice, so that's where swimming has really taken off. And why can't master swimmers do that? Why can't they swim race pace?
Yeah. Looking back to when you were an athlete in between Sydney Olympics and Athens, and you said you started to have a bit more sort of say in your workouts. Who were you working with at that time? Which coach, and how did you sort of put that on the table to get those workouts in?
I was working with Ian Pope, and before that, I was working with Brian Sutton, and Brian Sutton is a brilliant coach, but I didn't have the confidence in myself to say, hey, I want to do things this way. And so after the 2003 World Championships, I swam well. I made the final. But I went to Brian and said, I want to make a change. And so I shifted to Ian Pope down in Melbourne and went down there and basically just said to Popey, I said, look, this is going to be a partnership. I'm at the end of my career. I'm going to go to the Olympics for me. I've already done an Olympics. I did 2000, and, I did it for everybody who'd ever helped me. And everybody who had helped me were there at that Olympics. It was my home Olympics. So I felt like I had given everybody everything I needed to give them, right? Like that's your Olympics. I gave that to you. I'm going to go to Athens, and this one's going to be for me. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to swim for me. No one's invited. You're not allowed to come. You can watch it on TV, but I'm going to Athens for me. And that's what I did. And I ended up making the final in Athens and giving it, squeezing every ounce of it out that I could. But in terms of the training, I had a little bit more say. Now, that's not to say that I was certainly writing all the workouts or anything like that, but I definitely had some influence in how I wanted to do things. And that just felt good at that time, which then kind of propelled me into coaching because it made me think. I think before I was just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Whereas as an older athlete between 2003 and 2006, for those 3 years when I was training with Ian Pope, I had the ability to think and say, I don't want to do that today. I want to do this, or I want to do that, and this is how I want to do it. And so he did give me that freedom. It was a partnership, and that's what I really liked about it.
Yeah. And you coached Cesar to gold medal in Beijing in the 50 freestyle. Yeah. How did that partnership start? And how did you use everything that you learned from your career as an athlete into helping him win that 50?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the partnership started because I went to Auburn to coach as an assistant for David Marsh. And basically, at that time, David was coaching Cesar for the 200 freestyle. And Cesar was from Brazil, which we all know, and he's living in Alabama. And he's there, and David's training for the 200. And when I got there, David basically said, look, I got this young kid who's talented. I think he'd be a great 200 freestyler. He just doesn't see it in himself. He does not want to swim the 200 free. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick him with you and just get him to go fast. That's all I want. Just make sure he doesn't go home, because we don't want him to leave, and just get him to be happy and get him to swim fast. And I'd never written workouts before. Like I said, I thought about, how I wanted to structure things, but David gave me that freedom to create. And so that's what I started to do. So I started to think to myself, well, again, this is where that philosophy of wanting them to walk off the deck happy and smiling. And I always thought to myself, well, that's how I would want to be coached. I want to feel like, man, someone just kicked me up the butt, but it felt good, and I want to come back and do that again, you know. So the philosophy started there with Cesar, really, and we just clicked, and we had immediate success with it. And he went from being unhappy every workout to very happy every workout, and doing the things that made him feel good, and swimming very fast in practice. He wanted to swim fast, and he didn't want to be doing pace 200 work and stuff like that. He wanted to go fast. And so when we started to do that, and we started to bring in resistance and power and all that sort of stuff, and race pace, you know, he just ate it up. And so we just had immediate success. And again, it was a partnership. I took the same philosophy of the way that Ian Pope treated me. It was like, hey, we're in this together. I know a lot about sprinting, but I don't know a lot about you. You know more than anybody about yourself. So like, how do you feel? What do you want to do? Like, and it was more of like him just giving me feedback. That's ultimately what it was. But then me imparting my knowledge and experience on, well, I'm telling you, I've been through this. I've watched it. I've witnessed it. I've experienced it. This is the way we need to do things based on everything that I know about this. And so it was like an agreement. Like he would trust me, I would trust him, and we kind of met in the middle, and that's where we had a lot of success.
Yeah, huge amount of success.
Yeah.
Did he ever doubt? Yeah, absolutely. Did he ever doubt himself before that final?
Not before the final. He would always doubt himself. He would always put a lot of pressure on himself to be better. Look, Caesar's a different type of athlete, right? Like, I can't compare him to many people because he had a standard for himself that was above and beyond what anybody normally would have for themselves. Like, Cesar had visions of himself being Olympic champion from a very young age. Cesar had visions of himself being a world record holder. So that's where it didn't align with what David was seeing for him. Like, I think you can be a great 200 freestyle. I said, no, I'm going to be an Olympic champion in sprinting, in the 50 and the 100. That's what I see in myself. So when I came over and started, and I believed in that for him as well, and I saw that too. I was like, oh, this kid's talented and special. Then he didn't ever doubt his ability, but then when he would rest, you know, he would start to doubt of like, well, have I done the work to be as good as I think I am, kind of thing. And that's where I would just come in and just work it and massage it, you know, mentally, and just be like, get him in the right spot to be like, listen, trust me, we're exactly where we need to be. And so that's where a little bit of the coaching comes in, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. What was his sort of prime skill in that 50? Was it his dive? Was it his technique?
Yeah. I mean, his prime skill was his power. He was the most powerful sprinter that I've ever coached. You know, like if you were to put a resistance on him, he could pull it harder than anybody I'd ever seen pull. But he was also physically gifted. You know, big hands, big feet, long limbs, and could catch water. Like, was very good at catching water early. He didn't have much slip at all. He didn't have many bubbles around his hands. He would put his hand in the water and it would hold water, and he could pull water. So that was ultimately his biggest gift, is his feel for the water and his pull on the water. Something that you can't teach many people that. It's not something that it's like, hey, at that level, you know what I mean? Like, and so, so when he was in the pool, he could just pull buckets of water, and that was his ultimate gift, I would say. And he had competitors. It wasn't like he ran away with the thing, but he was also very mentally strong. Again, behind the blocks, he had this tremendous belief in him. So once he was behind the blocks, he thought, I'm unbeatable. I'm the man I think I am type thing, but it took him to get behind the blocks before that. But so those two things were his biggest qualities, I'd say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I haven't heard that before, so that's great. You worked with Cody Simpson just at the beginning when he hopped back into the water. How did that all come about? Share with us how that little relationship started.
I actually wanted to do a podcast with him because I knew he was kind of a swimming enthusiast at the time, and I knew he was a famous musician, and so I was just looking for podcast guests, and he had kind of a background in swimming. I thought, it might be cool to talk to him, and so I got his number through a friend, and I texted him and I said, hey, would you be interested in doing a podcast? He said, and he's like, not really, but I'm interested in finding a coach. Could you help me do that? I was like, really? Like, you want to swim? He's like, yeah, I think I want to swim. I want to start swimming full time. I was like, you're one of the best young musicians in the world. Why would you want to do that? And so we went through a process of kind of talking back and forward of like why he would want to do it. And just it came to a point where I was like, well, I'm not going to keep questioning him. If he wants to do it, then and again, it was just at a point in my life where I was like, well, if you want to do this seriously, then you have to find a serious coach, and I'm available right now. So like, would you want to work with me? And he's like, yeah, let's give it a try. So I started sending him workouts for about a month on his own, and then I moved out to California and started working with him. But just as I moved out, it was right at the start of the pandemic, and so as soon as I moved there, everything shut down, completely shut down. So we had to get super creative. So the first few workouts, for first few months, were just in a backyard pool of like 10 meters long, and he was on a stretch cord. So like, it started off really difficult circumstances. We did a lot more. Again, we did a lot more of the outside of the pool work, where he was just getting fitness and getting his flexibility and getting his strength and just feeling like an athlete, like doing athletic things. So we did some interesting stuff. We were running hills, and we were running on the beach, and we were swimming in the ocean. It was just one of those things where you had to figure it out. But it was a great start to a really fun relationship,
Yeah. What's your take on the Aussie trials last week? I mean, the media here are saying, oh, Cody bombed out. Not that I think that, because he's on a journey to next year. But what's your take on where he's sitting at the moment?
I think he wasn't as successful as I would have hoped he could have been, and I think he'll be the first one to admit that. Like, I don't think he swam to the standard that he's able to swim at in the 100 butterfly. I'm talking about the 100 butterfly is the event that he's really training for, and I think he has the most potential in. I honestly think if he had have just swum his best time, it would have put him on that team, because Kyle Chalmers basically was right around his best time and finished second. So like, I do think Cody in this sense, in this event right here that we're talking about, didn't swim to his potential. I think he'll be the first to admit that. So it was kind of like the first setback for him, where he didn't swim to his abilities. Whereas before, I think he was out swimming himself. Every time he got in the pool, it was like, oh my God, like, he's so far ahead. He's been training really hard for this. So this is certainly a setback, but it's not like the end of the road. We all have setbacks. Like, every one of us has moments where we're just off our best, and we're like, dang, like, what can I do better? And I think that's kind of where he's reflecting right now, is like, okay, could have been better. I should have been better. Why wasn't I? And how can I make it happen? And anyone that missed this Australian team, I mean, we had people at the Australian trials win events and didn't make the qualifying time, so it's like, and some of them weren't selected. So look, there's a bunch of people having to ask themselves the same questions. Just Cody's so public, and people expect so much of him that any little setback is like this tragic event, and it's not a tragic event. It's just a reevaluation of like, okay, what can I do better?
Yeah, No, absolutely. There was a lot
Mm,
of people that missed out that I thought were
mm.
really stiff, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
could have
yeah.
taken some of those younger athletes for a bit of experience because it certainly wasn't a
Yeah,
full team. So,
yeah. There's definitely an argument for that. And then there's an argument to say, well, I did talk to Rowan Taylor at the event, and I spoke to him live at the pool, and basically he said, look, we're going to make this one tough, but we're going to open up a bunch of travel events for anyone that doesn't make this team. We're going to go to World Cups and things like that. So they are investing a lot of money in traveling and racing for anyone that was close or anyone that, they potentially think could make the Olympic team. So it's not the end of the line to say, well, you're not going to get any more opportunities till next year. There's going to be a bunch of opportunities for people like Cody to go and race internationally over the next few months. They wanted people at the World Championships who are going to make finals, and on paper, some of those kids weren't making finals right now. So I guess you could argue both ways,
yeah, yeah. No, I understand their thinking. It's just I feel sorry for those kids that missed out.
Oh yeah, listen, I've been
Yeah,
one of those people that have
I know.
missed in the past. Like
So have
I finished third at the Olympic trials in '96, and I was sitting at home watching. Actually, you know what? At the Olympic trials, I finished sixth in the 100 freestyle, and they can take top six. And for the Atlanta Olympics, they only took the top five. They actually left me home, and I made the qualifying standard. So that was devastating. It was tough, and you do have to kind of wrestle with that as an athlete, but hopefully it can make you stronger and you come out of it and you think to yourself, well, that was kind of a blessing in disguise. So, depends on the athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always think of you on your social media channels as a little bit of a provocateur. And I noticed that this morning you put out a list of your top 10 male sprinters, which has caused quite a. Have you looked at all the comments this morning?
Yeah. They're blowing up at me.
Quite a blow up.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, it's so difficult to pick 10. Like I was going through it. Actually, you know what started? I was on my Instagram today, and I saw some basketball thing, where they picked the top 5 basketball players. Someone had put out a list of the top 5 players they thought if the world was ending, who would be your top 5 basketball players? That was the kind of thing that it was, and that kind of got me. That stirred my thinking of like, well, who are the top 5 sprinters that I would want to save the planet? And so I actually started a list of 5, and I got to 6, and I was like, I can't get to 5. I've got 6, and I was like, well, if I got 6, I might as well just stretch it to 10. And then when I went to 10, I had like 11, 12, 13, and 14. I was like, what do I do now? So I was like, you know what, Brett, screw it. Just put out your 10 and let's see what happens. And there was a lot of controversy,
Let's see what happened. Are you going to put out 10 female sprinters as well?
I'm going to have to now. Yeah, I've really stepped in it, haven't I? So I'll have to put out 10 female. Again, I spent about 30 minutes thinking about this and didn't realize it was going to take on what it has. So now I'm going to have to even it out and pick so I'll probably put more thought into the women than I did the men, but see what happens.
And what was your reasoning for leaving off Caleb Dressel?
It's a good question, and you can look, the 10 that I picked are worthy of the 10. First of all, the reason why I left off Caleb is I haven't said this publicly, so this is going to be the first time I say this publicly. I'll probably get in trouble for this, so thanks a lot. But
newsflash,
I have trouble personally with the fact that he was picked as the captain of the World Championship team last year, and he left halfway through the meet and didn't tell any of the other athletes. I have a personal issue with that. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't even know all the information. I just know what I know. And I'm not on the inside of it, so I don't know the ins and outs of it. But if I was picked as the captain of the Australian team, there is no chance in hell I'm leaving that team halfway through the meet. It's not. Nothing could stop me. Nothing. Unless someone put a bullet in me. That's the only thing. And so this is a personal feeling from me. have an issue that he left, and I have never said it publicly. And so when it comes down to the top 10 greatest of all time, I need an explanation before I can put him in there. You know, if I get one, I get one. If I don't, I don't. He doesn't owe me an explanation, but I don't owe him a reason to not put him in either. You know, like that's my reason. So
Exactly.
Look, and the other thing is, he's been very successful at one Olympics for sure, and a lot of the guys that I put in, you know, what kind of multiple Olympians and things like that, you know, multiple Olympic medals, back-to-back gold medals, things like that. So yeah, it was a tough top 10, but could he be in there? Yeah, he could be in there, you know.
Yeah.
But I'd have to take someone off, and then I'd be arguing, well, why don't I take that person out as well? But look, if Caleb goes to Paris and repeats as a champion again, there's no doubt that he's probably the greatest sprinter in history, you know. But that still remains to be seen what Caleb's going to do over the next 12 months.
Yeah, because you have to then compare him to Popov.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got Peter Van den Hoogenbaan, who went back to back in the 100 freestyle. You know, like there's arguments for everyone that I put in there. There's arguments for all of them, and you know, some people might say, well, how did Tom Jager get in there? Tom Jager to me is just like a godfather of sprinting. Like, you know, he's just the man that him and Matt Biondi just changed sprinting and the way that we think about sprinting. They were like the godfathers, those two. And so like, I'm always going to put them on the list no matter what, even if they don't have the credentials or maybe some of these other guys, but Matt Biondi does for sure, but not Tom Jager. So yeah, that's, you know, like there's arguments for all of it, but that's the fun part about it. But yeah, I'm going to get in trouble now for everything that I just said about Caleb.
No. Give us a bit of a prediction for Paris next year. Women's 100 and men's 100 free winners.
Men's 100 free, David Popovich for sure. Like I'm putting all my chips on the table with David Popovich in the 100 and 200. I think that at this stage, nobody's shown me that they're going to be able to beat him. You know, there's a lot of great swimmers, but I think David Popovich is just the best of the best. He's a generational talent. He's so well-rounded. He's the full package. So like you listen to him talk, and then you watch him swim, and then you're like, you know his coach, and you know his family. It's like, how are you going to beat that guy? Good luck trying to beat that. So Popovich is an easy choice for me. You know, barring injury or illness, right? So there's that. On the women's side, I think it is a little bit more open, right? You have any number of Aussie women who could get it done at the trials and then are going to be in the top 3 at the Olympics for sure. You know, like the top 5 Aussie women are in the top 10 in the world right now. Yes. You know, so it's like, it's crazy how good the women are. So to pick one of them, you would have to say, well, they're going to win the Australian trials and then they're going to go on and win the Olympics. That would be the thinking. So yeah, it's so hotly contested. I think Molly O'Callaghan is putting herself in a brilliant position to be that person. Emma McKeon has obviously got a track record of being an Olympic champion, so hard to bet against her. You know, there's, like I said, there's any number of them, but I think it's going to be an Aussie woman. I think the Aussie women will win the 100 free. It's just going to be who shows up on the day to win that trial event to get them a chance to be at the Olympics and swim individually. Yeah,
absolutely. And everyone that comes on my podcast, Brett, I like to ask them a deep dive 5 questions quickly about their swimming. So I was just going to ask you very quickly, from your point of view, the most important technical part of the 50 freestyle?
Is holding your stroke together. That's the toughest part. Like anybody can get to the 25 fairly quickly, but holding that together is the key to winning. You know, so the winner generally is between kind of the 30 and the 45. Like that gap in there. Like if you can master that, hold your technique together, which means length and tempo. If you can hold those together, then you'll do really well.
Do you breathe at all on a 50 yourself?
I didn't. No, I didn't. And I still don't think you need to on a 50, but it needs to be well trained. But if you do have a good breath where you don't lose that tempo and length and power and speed, then breathing is still a good thing. It can get difficult, and so it has to be well trained. But I still haven't seen anyone show me that breathing is faster than not breathing in the 50. Yeah.
Yep. What's your favorite freestyle drill?
Favorite freestyle drill? I mean, I've put this on my social media. I love a good polo head up freestyle drill. And the reason why I like the head up freestyle drill is if you do it correctly, you can position your hand the way I want your hand to be positioned. You catch water immediately, you get over the top of it. You're very high in the water, but you're pressed as well. You have to keep your chin very steady. I don't want any side-to-side movement. So again, in sprint freestyle, you don't want any movement up or down, side to side. So holding that position in a high head up freestyle is again key. And then you lock your core in. You keep your hips fairly flat. So you don't want tons of rotation in your, you want your hips fairly square. And then you have to have good shoulder rotation in order to get over the top and get that length. So I've always been one to do a good head up freestyle drill, but doing it a certain way. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you better at kick or pull?
I was definitely better at pull, but kick was something that I knew I needed to improve. So I put a lot of work into improving my kick to a point where it was just above average, but it was never elite. I was never the best kicker. Michael Clem could kick me, all around the pool. Matt Welsh, I trained with him. What a brilliant kicker that guy was. And so, yeah, I was not in the elite, but I definitely had to make improvements.
And what's one drill that you could use to work on for an explosive dive?
Explosive dive. We used to do, you put a resistance band around the block. I can see you've got a block behind you here. Mm-hmm. And what I would do is I'd put a resistance band on that metal part there, and I would have it really tight, and I would do explosive push-offs the wall, right? So maybe do like 5 in a row, like explosive. So you'd push out, but the band would pull you back in really quickly. So it would have to be very, very tight. So you explode out 5 times, take the band off, and then get up on the block and then do an explosive dive. So that's just a way to kind of like activate the power in your legs. So that's something that anybody can do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because I feel like it's really hard to transfer that sort of vertical speed up onto the blocks.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So you can get yourself in a track star position with a resistance band and push off the wall, just and then jump up on the block and then activate those legs like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you've talked us through the Auburn Sprint Set, but what's your personal favorite freestyle set?
I've put this out a few times. My personal favorite is a set that I actually did with Brian Sutton. I said that I trained with him, from 1999 to 2003, and he was a brilliant coach. And his set is one that I repeat all the time. And so what he would do for me, and then I'd do for all my athletes, is a 25 off the block at 100 speed. Then you do a 75 easy. So you basically get your time, and then immediately start a 75 easy technique, good technique. So your heart rate's going, but you're holding good technique. You do a 75, and then you'd rest 10 to 20 seconds, and you'd do a back end 50. And so you basically want to be at your race pace of your second 50 of your 100. So let's say you're training for the 100, your first 25 would be, 10-8. If I was wanting to swim 48 seconds, I'd be 10-8 for the first 25. I'd get my time. I'd go into a 75 technique. I'd rest 10 seconds, and then I'd go into a 50 trying to push under 25 seconds. So you want to be under 25 seconds. Everybody who comes back these days are all coming back under 25 seconds. So that would be the goal. And then you would repeat that 6 times. So you'd have a rest after that, maybe swim another 100 easy, but the 100 easy this time would just be a flop. So you'd be on your back, just doing some easy backstroke. And then you'd do that 6 times. So that's easily my favorite set. It's very specific, and it really gets you thinking about how you want to take out your 100 and how you want to bring it home. And there's enough cool down in there, and there's enough technical work in there that gives you the recovery that you need to be able to back it up. And 6 rounds of that, and you're cooked, you're toast. That's easily my favorite set.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us today, Brett. It's been so amazing talking to you and getting all your perspectives on everything in swimming.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Danielle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll put a link to your new website in the show notes so people can check that out over the next week. And all the master swimmers out there that are listening, I'm sure will check out what's happening.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, bretthawke.com, get on it, and come join the journey with me, and we'll have a little bit of fun with it, Thank you.
Sounds great. Well, good luck on your journey, and hopefully we'll see you in Doha next year.
I'll be there. All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay, thanks.